For 5 Breakfast News and Weather, I'm Tabo Baloy.
It's a book Friday on 5 Breakfast, which means that every single Friday we are bringing a Springbok legend, a World Cup winner, a gold medal holder into studio. And we are so delighted to announce that our latest Springbok legend has arrived. But before then, I need to play you something very quick. Something very surprising for the team. I want to know, please tell me, what was the moment or the player when you fell in love with the Springboks?
I remember the 2007 World Cup, the final.
Oh, yeah?
And I remember it was the captain at that time, John Smit. And I remember thinking like, ooh, he's cute. Okay. And I watched the rest of the game and I thought, ooh, he's really cute. And I remember at the end when they won, then their families and everyone comes running onto the field. And I thought, oh, one day that's going to be me. I'm gonna marry a rugby player, and me and the whole family, we're going to sit there, watch the game.
Yes.
And then afterwards, when we win the World Cup, we're going to run onto the field and Yeah.
Madly, you turned red.
I know,
as you were telling that story. You are so in love.
Do you know that we might have John Smit in studio in a few weeks' time?
Yo.
Madly is gonna come with her face done.
Yo. And you haven't seen me with my face done in the longest time.
5FM, please welcome to studio World Cup winning captain 2007, John Smit is here! He is a World Cup winning legend. And Madly's sexual awakening, maybe. A champion, a scholar, a mentor, and an icon. And genuinely one of the most inspirational South Africans in history. Ladies and gentlemen, John Smit is here!
Oh my goodness!
Okay,
Dan, I hate you!
Madly has turned redder than a tomato and she went to Marty's. So we're going to play the ginger intro and then we're going to be back with John Smit himself. My man, such a pleasure to meet you, Dan. Are you good? She told us completely randomly last week and we had to do it.
No wonder you guys are secretive about who's coming today.
John Smit, World Cup winning captain, is here. My man, thank you. Such a pleasure to meet you. I remember exactly where I was. Weirdly enough, I watched the World Cup final in 2007 in France at a church. Wow. Who was like, we're going to have a screening because this is God's work or whatever. 100%. It is so good to have you here. Thank you so much for being such a good sport. John Smit stood in the security for 15 minutes so that he could surprise Madly.
Oh my word.
This was quite a mission. Like it was a very well sought out plan with a lot of detail involved. Yeah.
I feel so, I don't know, cheated.
Why?
I feel, at least I have some green on today because last week I forgot to wear green. So luckily I have some green on. But Dan, my hair is not even washed, no makeup. Come on. This is my crush.
This is a great moment for me as well because
look how I'm looking now.
I mean, she's a lovely looking lady. And normally my wife always mocks me because it's always the old grannies that are calling out for me. And so we were walking along this one day with my wife and I, and there was this beautiful blonde girl calling me John, and my wife was so half excited for me because it was like this first really good looking woman that had called out to me
ever.
And then I was like, she like grabbed me by the, she said, look, and I was like, no, she's calling Jean de Villiers.
Oh no, John Smit. Well, John, we are just getting genuinely, we haven't planned this, we're just getting messages on the WhatsApp line right now from a bunch of people who say that you are and were 100% their crush. Here's Erica.
My forever crush from Sharks Fan Girl.
Good. How does it feel to discover on a random Friday morning in 2023 that you're a sex icon, John Smit?
It seems like an oxymoron being like a front row with ginger hair and slightly overweight. So.
Mate,
but I'll take it.
It is so good to have you here. You're so beloved. You're such an icon and you do so much for the game. I mean, Ayob was just updating me on some stuff that I didn't even know. I didn't know that you have a coffee company, that you run security stuff, but particularly that you run an SA Rugby Legends program. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so SA Rugby Legends was started by a guy called Gavin Vriges about 22 years ago. And it was really just because players were struggling to transition out of the game and they were a bit lonely and struggling. Obviously, even the stadiums are empty and there's no more game. And so we put together this organization called basically Ex-Players Club, SA Rugby Legends. And it started by just a couple of ex-has-beens playing games at various clubs and having a few beers afterwards and replicating, I guess, a little bit of the camaraderie from a year gone by. And then we started coaching the kids in the local communities before the games.
Wow.
And now it's really just, it's the only rugby development program in the country. And so SA Rugby outsource all of the development to us. And so the Celsi SA Rugby Legends just before COVID, we're getting to about 30,000 kids a year.
That's amazing.
And so, we've got some amazing stories, guys and girls that have gone on to play for South Africa. So it's really cool.
Akonondo Gane was on last week, and he said he's been invited to play some of these ex-players matches, and he won't because his body can't handle it.
Okay, is correct. So I've played 3, and I've gotten injured in all 3. So the previous one was about 10 weeks ago,
right,
against Portugal.
Okay.
I pulled my hamstring in the 4th minute.
In the 4th minute.
Chasing an up and under, which I wouldn't even have done when I was getting paid to play the sport.
It's so good that you're doing that, though. Holly and I speak a lot about how many players we know who get the thrill and the fulfillment and the joy of playing professionally and then suddenly get hit by a brick, basically, when they retire, because a huge part of their life just drops away. And you see footballers going into states of depression, cricketers who haven't made a plan to make money after their careers, not having a plan and are suddenly in crisis. So it's amazing what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a tricky state because the one thing about that they don't tell you when you start playing sport is that you get sort of addicted to dopamine. You become a drug addict of dopamine, which rushes through your veins at training every Saturday. The highs are massive, the lows are low, but you keep getting these highs that keep coming. So to try and control that and find something else after rugby, if you haven't been able to create some other interests while you played sport, is quite difficult.
Well, you're doing such good work, and you did such good work in 2007. I just want you to tell us what it felt like when the final whistle blew. There was a tight final against England. It was decided by kicks. There were some extraordinary on-the-line defensive tackles. I remember Brian Abanda did one in particular that stuck in my mind as a 13-year-old, losing my mind watching that game. What was the moment when the final whistle blew and it suddenly hit you? Not only were you a world champion, you were about to lift the Webb Ellis Cup. What was that feeling?
I tell you, the first emotion was definitely one of relief. It was like the world had been lifted off my shoulders, because we'd worked 4 years for this only one moment that had to be successful over 80 minutes.
Had to be perfect,
But I'll never forget, I was struggling to sleep on the Thursday and I was tossing and turning, and my wife said, obviously was getting irritated and she said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Well, we've got this pretty important game on the weekend." I was like, what if we come second? All of this 4 years away from home for like 250 days a year, working hard, all the sacrifices for nothing. So,
and you never remember the runner-up. It just doesn't feel.
No, you don't.
When you've got that close, it is a loss. A loss is a loss. Yeah.
She had this epiphany and she said, "Well, if you only focus on coming second, you'll forget to come first."
Oh, I see.
So it's one of those things that stuck with me. But relief was the first thing. This was the first emotion I felt. The first time I felt joy was when we lifted, when I had one hand on it with Thabo Mbeki, and it's sort of when it first sunk in. Yeah. And then there was a sort of a 3-day haze of alcohol-induced
happy times
confusion. And then when it really sunk home is when we got home to Oliver Tambo, and there was thousands of people. Then you realized for the first time actually who you're playing for.
Right, the full impact. That's crazy. I have to ask you, because obviously you had one hand on the trophy and Thabo Mbeki had his hand on the other, and he's not a tall man. Were you suddenly recalibrating how high to lift the trophy just for control,
He was an absolute gem. He actually flew in the night before just to come and wish us luck. And I'll never forget, because right after that, I think Ashwin and Bob picked him up and put him on the shoulders, and he had these 3 bodyguards, and they literally, I could see the panic setting into their eyes. And I actually met one of them about 2 weeks ago, and we were joking about just how stressed this guy thought his life was about to end, because if anything happened to Tabo, he was a goner.
That's amazing. Although I must say, if you as a bodyguard see Ashwin and Bob, you probably don't think, I'm going to step in and deal with some stuff. John Smit, I've just got to ask, how did you feel after the Scotland performance? Because the Boks won. They won dominantly, I think it's fair to say. Scotland had so few 22 entries. They never really looked a threat to us, except maybe at the end of the first half where they pulled back to 6-3, but they had made very few precious few chances. We hadn't made any huge, massive chances, but we rolled them over in the second half. The bomb squad, Mani Libok's ludicrous crossfield kick.
Yeah.
There were soccer group WhatsApp chats losing their mind over that rugby kick. Literally, weren't you saying, Polly?
the no look, of course.
The no look,
That is crazy.
crossfield, kick pass. We must say it fully. But some were saying we didn't push on. We didn't take our try-scoring opportunities. How do you feel about that opening match?
I think where we are as fans and spectators of the Springbok team is that it's a tidy unit. They are very experienced. They know what they have to do. They're not the kind of team that's going to go put on 80 points against a team. They get the job done, and they play according to what is in front of them, just because they're so strategic around, I guess, the plan that they have for the people in front of them. So we must always try and sort of calm our excitement down when we're playing someone that we think we're going to destroy. Saturday's game was a tricky one, a bit of a banana peel, because probably the most confident Scotland's ever been. I was on a ship the night before with some other Scottish internationals, Kelly Brown and Andy Nicol, who've both captained Scotland, and they were quietly confident. And I obviously got to give my prediction last, and I said, to try and sort of tether their excitement, I said, Russie's a smart guy. He put some double agents inside that camp about 5-6 years ago.
Do you know what's so funny? So John is referring to the South Africans playing for Scotland. There was a viral video of two Scotsmen in a bar saying Scotland were going to win because their South Africans were better than our South Africans. But I agree with you.
But it was a great performance because they were in control for 80 minutes. So they had the game in check. It was a great performance. Again, a phenomenal performance by a couple of players, specifically Mani Libok. I mean, everyone's talking about the fact that he's not hitting 90% of the tee, but when you can do a kick pass without looking where you're kicking like that, that's 5 point makes up for a couple of 3 pointers.
And I mean, he was running the backline on offense, but Scotland's biggest breakthrough moment, he was the recovery tackle man. Yeah. It was beautiful to watch because he pointed to his outside back saying, take them because I've got this one. He literally in real time set up that defensive play. He did an extraordinary job.
The other beautiful thing about Mani, he's our first fly half in about 2 decades that has real pace off the mark.
Right.
He's very, very quick off the mark. So he is an actual threat ball in hand. He's not just a distributor. So that makes him... And the other thing about Mani Libok that people don't notice is that he kicks with both left and right foot, which means we get to play Damien Willems at fullback, because normally if you've got a right-footed kicker and a fly half, you want to exit on the left with your fullback, which is where Willie comes in. So it's given the coaches more options from a fullback point of view.
I mean, just watching Mani choose which flank he's kicking for a penalty to gain meterage and then picks his leg. It's awesome. All right, John Smit, we know that you're a great storyteller, but now I want to hear a story from your life, and we don't know if it's true or a lie, and we're going to test out the fire systems, the smoke alarms in here to see if you're lying, and the listeners are going to tell us whether they think you are telling a fib or not. What do you have to say, John Smit?
So my story's got nothing to do with rugby. It starts at the beginning when I was at school. I was at boarding school at Pretoria Boys High down the road in Mali. I can tell you the traffic from Pretoria this morning was disastrous. The crux of the story is I'm probably the only guy to ever be... You know what bunking out means?
Yeah.
When you're in a hostel and you bunk out.
You skip off class?
No, you basically wake up late when all the masters are sleeping and you go out and you illegally escape the grounds.
Oh, you flee the school.
You flee the school and get one or two castles.
Yeah, liquid beverages.
Just to settle the nerves,
Some adult drinks.
Experimental social vibe.
Okay, so you broke out of hostel.
But it's highly illegal, as you can well imagine. It's super dangerous. So we were bunking out in standard 9, which
grade
is
11,
form 4. And we had one of the matrics had a car then. We were pushing the car to the gate, and we'd made a plan with the guy at the gate to let us out. And I think he double crossed us because we got were caught right at the gate.
Oh, you met a bunch of teachers and
Yes,
masters.
Yes.
Yo,
So
John
that is the
Smit.
first half of the story. So the second half of the story is I am also the only guy who's been caught bunking into the school after leaving the school.
You broke back in.
I broke back in.
Why?
We were having a few beverages
You wanted to go visit the old school.
with a few of the old schoolmates. It was an under-21 game. I was there with the Sharks to play the Bulls, and obviously we won significantly. And we were celebrating, and we thought it would be a good idea to break back into the school. What we didn't realize is they'd put electric fences around the school. But thankfully, we'd enjoyed ourselves enough to withstand the odd shock.
You didn't feel it.
So we felt it.
Okay.
But we got over the fence, and obviously
John
we went up to
Smit.
the hostel, and I bunked into my hostel, and we're going through, and during this time I got a little bit sleepy, and we were in the Form 2 dorm, which is grade 9.
Yes.
And I kicked one of the boys out of the bed
And had a nap.
and I had a little lie down. And then the other 3 guys that were with me were panicking because they couldn't find me until eventually they saw, which would seem normal in many other boys' schools, but they saw these 2 little guys sleeping in one bed,
Oh, yeah?
followed by this giant Form 2 kid
Yeah.
sleeping in a bed. And it was that sort of searching around that led to us being caught as well.
Oh, you were caught
and
again.
being arrested, you know.
You were arrested.
What?
By your old school for breaking back into the school.
Yeah. It took some convincing.
Wow, that wasn't very
yeah.
cool of you, Pretoria Boys High.
Exactly. I
wanna
could have
remind-
slept there the whole night
I know, no
happily,
worries.
and probably had watered down scrambled eggs the next morning.
I just want to remind everybody who's wondering whether this is true or not that John Smit is one of the moral leaders of the nation. A man selected by the institution of the Springboks to lead us in being a good South African. Do you think he's telling the truth or a lie? Mudley, you had a crush on him. Maybe still do. Tell us if you think this is true or not.
Okay, so I get that you were much younger then. So, I mean,
20.
obviously, yeah, adventurous, but no, I don't believe it.
He's lying.
Lying.
Both
I
of
will-
them.
Both of them, my hero would never be arrested. Like you said, Dan, a man of morals. I don't believe one bit of it.
Okay. Tabo, what do you think?
Wait, what were you arrested for? What did they say you were arrested for then? With the
Breaking and
consequences?
entering?
Breaking and
Probably.
entering.
Damn, and then did you go to jail? The
just-
whole bit.
The reason why it was confusing for me is I said I haven't really stolen anything,
Okay.
but I was trespassing.
Okay.
You know what? He's from Pretoria, and I'm from Pretoria, so
You
he's
can
a
believe
good.
it.
No. He's a good boy.
Oh, really?
We are good people.
Oh, sure you
So I
are.
don't-
Okay. Holly, you're the
Cool.
sports anchor of the show.
The first story had slight contradictions because you said you were the only boy to have banked, right?
No, out and in.
Only boys to go out
To
and
get
in.
caught banking out and banking in.
He had a
Yeah, but
squad
that's not
both
what
times.
you said, John, the first time.
No, he did say that.
But then
did
you
say
left
that.
with the group.
Money, don't defend him.
Money,
We know
stop
why. Okay.
Okay, so how many of you in that first story did you leave
In the
with?
Form 4 story, there were 4 of us. 'cause
Yeah,
we had
so-
to push the 200 merc.
Oh, was it
And
a
there were,
merc?
but all 4 of us were from Issachar. The second time, why she's actually picked up on this is that the
Okay.
second time there were also 4 of us, but I was the only Issachar, only guy from Issachar.
Oh, were any of the new people not from Pretoria Boys High? Or were they
no,
all
they were
ex?
all boys high, but they were from all the sort of the B team hostels.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right, John Smit claims that he busted out of boarding school in grade 9, 10 and got caught at the gate because the security guard had snitched on them. I would love to know what you were offering the security guard.
$100.
$100.
That was a lot.
And then, yeah,
Back
well,
then.
it's still a lot now. I'd love a Randella. That's nice. But then John Smit claims he's the only person who then got busted breaking back in his early 20s when he was in Pretoria with the Bulls. Yeah, 100%. And so we want to know what you think. And John, people have gone for deep cuts. Say someone's about to talk about your mom.
Really, she would be
John is
disappointed.
definitely telling the truth. John Smith's mom was my teacher when I was in primary school in Rustenburg, and she was, a straight arrow. So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure John was a rebel by nature.
Oh, a rebel type. All right.
I say first one is true, second one is false.
Okay, so you're saying that he did break out of boarding school, but he never broke back in later.
Well, let me start by saying good morning.
Hello.
I believe him because I played rugby in high school as well.
Yeah.
And rugby boys, we tend to be a bit mischief.
Yes, there is that reputation.
That's a nice word.
Tracy.
He liar, pants on fire. No, I don't believe you.
Okay, and here's Erica.
Pants on fire, I would say that's true. He's a rugby player and a teenager.
John Smit, World Cup winner, trophy raiser, captain of the Springboks in the 2007 Rugby World Cup. The last time we were in France and we beat England in the final. But did you just lie to the whole country? Did you or did you not break out of Boys High as a high schooler and get caught, and then break back in and get caught again, but this time get arrested for trespassing when you were found in a random bed in the grade 9's dorm floor having a nap because you'd had a big one?
So, there are elements of this story that are false.
Okay.
But by and large, it's true. So we did it. Hang on, before we celebrate.
Okay.
So we did attempt to bunk out, and we had done a deal with a guard at the gate.
Okay.
And he then he went down the road of guilt, and he turned us back. So we never got caught, but we did have to push the Merc back up the hill.
Oh.
So we never got caught.
He didn't out you, but he didn't let you out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then when we bunked back in, it was 4 of us, and I did fall asleep in a bed after kicking some poor little kid out. And my mates did take about half an hour to find me, but we managed to make it out as well. So we never got caught either on the way out and certainly not on the way in.
John Smith.
Yeah.
That counts as lying. That's pants on fire.
My goodness.
And then look who he became. Imagine.
There was this moral of the story. Don't get caught.
John Smit is here. We have time for just 2 more questions. He's been on Pants on Fire, one of our Bok legends who's coming into the show every single Friday. John, I'm just going to throw them out here and you can choose to respond however you like. Here is the first one.
Good morning, breakfast team. So, question for Mr. John Smith. Who does he think is going to be in the finals this year of the Rugby World Cup?
Big call.
It's 2023. I'm 45 years old, and people still call me John Smith.
I know. Who was another player?
Holy smoke. I do believe that South Africa are going to meet France in the final.
Okay. So what does that require? That requires both?
It requires us we got to keep winning.
We both top our groups.
So we got to top our group. France got to top their group, which means we're going to have to play All Blacks.
Yeah, France gets the cute side of the draw.
They do get the cute side. So we don't have a cute side. So we either get France or All Blacks as a quarterfinal. So I think All Blacks in the quarterfinals, the way it's looking now. But it's going to be tight.
It's going to be wild. Yeah. I think the nation would go to national mourning if we beat them by a record margin in a World Cup warm-up game, the All Blacks, and then lost in a quarterfinal.
New Zealand down.
I think they would close it.
It would be the end.
They would finally be declared as a province of Australia. We could all move on. Stop thinking about it.
John told us who's going to be in the final, not who's winning it.
He said he's going to say the Boks.
I have to say the Boks, but I do believe the Boks. I just think that Sia and his team. I mean, I was there last weekend at Scotland, and I mean, again, we were talking about the Guija earlier. The way that the vibe and the team that they've built, the sort of culture, and Sia's just right in the front with this calmness. I mean, when he walks out, I think about our group walking out singing into a test match, and then listening to the same song coming from the stands.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, we didn't know what the Guija was, and we didn't know what the song was, but now it's this collective calling of, we have one mother, we're both brothers and sisters, and it's the team that's singing this. Can you imagine how unnerving it must be for an opposition to see this physical specimen of South Africa just singing and sort of dancing on their way out to the field, knowing full well they're about to commit some violent crimes.
It's so crazy to me because the haka is so iconically intimidating. Yeah. But I'd be way more intimidated by looking at 2 average 6'4" height, a group of average 6'4" height men being so calm about what's about to happen, and you are nervous, you are panicking, you are the opposition, you are terrified, and they are just so like, oh, we're gonna mess you up.
You're right. It's like a serial killer. I don't think a serial killer gets nervous before he's killed.
So calm. I love it. Okay, John Smit, final question, and I didn't know this would come in actually.
Morning, Dan and team.
Hello.
and Mr. Smith.
You're Smit.
So
do you know what people call me? They think I'm saying quarter, but in an English way where I flatten the T into a D, so they think I'm Dan Quarter. I get called the quarter pounder all the time.
Almost Dan Carter.
I got called that. Dan Carter once got a very rude tweet that was meant for me because somebody used the wrong Twitter handle. They were criticizing the show. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure he's fine.
my question is, if one day, don't know when, but if it happens that one day Saru calls you up to be the head coach of the Springbok, will you accept it?
Yo, John Smit, over to you.
I can say without a shadow of a doubt, in all the jobs and opportunities in the South Africa that I've come across, that is got to be the cuckest one.
Did you just say that?
He's allowed to. He's John Smit. It's my show.
It's one of the most important jobs, but it is so hard. Like you just can't win. And when you're winning, like your worm inside your head just gets bigger and bigger. And when you're losing, the whole world's again this conspiracy. It literally turns lucid men into crazy people.
Yeah, you're right. So yes is the answer.
So no.
Oh, okay. John Smit, one of the least. Look, we may as well know as John Smit, the least cuckest person we've had. I'm trying to save the show. We've had, my man, genuinely a dream and an honor, not just to meet you, but to have you on a radio show of mine. Like when I started out in radio, you were one of the people who I thought, wouldn't it be beautiful? It was you and Sean Pollock. Because I was born and raised a ginger and I needed my heroes. And thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
We so appreciate you.
Guys.
Nick Archibald, who I think is probably furious that he didn't get to speak to John Smit. Hello.
I'm only a little bit jealous, and by a little bit, I mean a lot. One of, if not the greatest South African captain we've ever seen. What an interview. He's not the cuckest bloke on earth. There's no doubt about
it. Archie! We're all going to go off air very soon.
This is 5FM.